Hi, it's good to be back with you, Wes, for CoffeePods. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thank you. But it seems a while since we've done one, isn't it?
It has been a while.
But I was just talking to a church leader just a couple of weeks ago who was saying that they use the coffee pods in their small groups, and so we get to go to other churches, Lisa, you and I,
Yeah, without even knowing.
without even knowing.
Oh,
There you go.
I love it. I love it. I actually, on that, I went to a service on Sunday where they were using one of the podcasts as a discussion, played the podcast, then broke into small groups of
Oh my
discussion. It
word!
was brilliant to be a part of it.
How brilliant! Oh gosh! Wow. Hey, I might not even have to turn up at church on Sunday anymore.
That's
We could just
right.
anyhow. Seriously, here we go.
Yes, let's do this. So we're starting a new series called Overcoming, and we're going to look at a number of different areas around this. But today we're going to explore together overcoming doubts. We all
Yeah.
have them, don't we? Whereas about life,
Yep.
faith, everything. So when I say overcoming doubts, what's the issue here? What are we exploring?
Well, of course, I mean, people have the idea that if you're a healthy Christian, then you are victorious all the time. Do you know? I mean, you walk on sunshine and at least a foot off the ground, and you don't. When it rains, you don't even get wet. I mean, you've got this idea of this thing, but of course, the truth is, you're absolutely right, Lisa. We all have doubts, and the issue is not so much not having them, if you see, but
Yeah,
actually, it's more about what they do to us, and also then I guess what we can then do about them. So
right.
it's what they do to us and what we do with them.
That's really helpful because you're right. Sometimes you do think, oh, I shouldn't be doubting.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, it's what we do with them and what they do to us. And you did also mention at the conference that we just had, you mentioned the story of the healing of the boy after the Mount of Transfiguration.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it has this well-known phrase, I believe, help me overcome my unbelief. Can
Very
you
good.
explain that a little bit for us?
Well, yeah, because the story is really interesting, isn't it? Because it's one of those moments when you see the disciples sort of in Nikam digital stereo technicolor, warts and all. They've clearly been approached by the father of this child who's got, in a sense, classic signs of epilepsy, but all the gospel writers and even Luke, who sort of understands the nature of stuff like that, can also differentiate between things that are simply a physical illness and then things that they attribute to a non-material reality. So like the demonic and within that. So Jesus, for instance, will rebuke winds and waves like he does a demon because there's something behind it working it out. And it's true in this situation. The disciples, they are presented with the request for healing. Many of us in the healing ministry have had moments where people have asked for that, and I call it, they've given it their best prayer, their best shot,
Yeah,
and it hasn't worked.
yeah.
And of course, it does provoke later on in them the question, why couldn't we do it? Because clearly they expected it to work. So what happens there very quickly is Jesus comes down the mountain after the Mount of Transfiguration. The crowds see him; they all run because to get him naturally. But there's an argument between the disciples and the teachers of the law, and it's all about this boy and why they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then the father comes to Jesus and says, "Can you help me?" And it's that lovely phrase. He says, "If you can do anything, can you help me, please, Jesus?" And Jesus says, "If everything's possible for those who believe." And this is where he then says, "I believe, help me overcome my unbelief." And I just love that. I love this guy. He's one of the guys, I'm going to spend most of heaven just going around meeting people and saying, what went through your mind when
Yeah.
you said, I believe, but help me with the places where I can't just reach it. And I think that's the problem for us. We think, if I can't believe about this, then my whole life's rubbish and I'm not a very good Christian. And that's not true.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if people challenge you on,
Oh,
on your belief. That can make it feel even harder, can't it?
yeah, it can. We got a guy that Mary and I know we chat about it, and he's often asking lots of questions about the Bible and about Christianity. And I just said to him, I don't know, some of it, I don't know. I've been reading this book for the best part of, nearly 50 years. And there's bits in it. And even I go, God, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop me living the bits I do understand,
I
which is,
see.
I think, what some people do.
Yeah.
So I live the bits I can understand, I do understand, but the bits that I don't, I have to say, okay, God, you're gonna have to help me with it.
Yeah. That's a really helpful way of looking at it. Because I was
Hmm.
just going to think, there's different doubts for everybody, and I'm thinking about the healing ministry in particular. Like, one of the huge doubts is they're not going to get healed.
Yeah,
Like, you get told something like cancer, well, they're not going to
yeah.
get healed, or you have a doubt about yourself being able to be the minister, don't you? I can't do this, or just a couple of examples. But there must be other examples in the Bible of people who face doubt.
Oh yeah, and actually, you just got my big doubt. I don't doubt God. I think
Yeah.
He's brilliant. I doubt me. I think I'm a
Yeah.
wazzock. And I'm thinking, Jesus, if you had somebody else here doing this, I'm sure it would work.
Yes.
But you ended up with me, and we can all go through that. And actually, for some Christians, they say they have utter confidence that Jesus will heal everybody else except them.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, with that kid. But yeah, I mean, I there is absolutely that. I mean, there are other people in the Bible. Take Thomas, disciple of Jesus, lived with Jesus for 3 years. I mean, he saw Lazarus raised from the dead. I mean, come on. I mean, there is stuff, the feeding the 5,000, the walking on the water stuff. I mean, just pick it up. And then they tell him that Jesus is alive, and he says, unless I see it for myself, and unless I put my finger in the hole and stuff, and you're thinking, oh boy, he just can't get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have a theory about Thomas, Lisa. I don't think he was looking for a reason to doubt. I think he was a man who was looking for certainty.
Oh.
I don't think he was. I think he just wanted to be so certain, but he just couldn't reach it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Jesus, I think probably with a twinkle in his eye, upbraids him and says, "Oh, come on, Thomas, you know, come on, there, put your finger in." And of course, church history records that Thomas went to India, planted a church, and died a martyr's death. That's not the lifestyle of a man who's a doubter.
No, it's not. It's not. And you've mentioned before, haven't you, about the difference between certainty? Is it certainty and
Yeah,
faith?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because the trouble is, we want when we talk about faith, we want it to be shaped in such a way that there's no risk.
Yeah.
But actually, that's the opposite of faith. Faith is by nature taking risk and saying, "God, I trust you." And I think that's why I say the opposite of faith is not unbelief. The opposite of faith is certainty
Yeah.
that we've created ourselves. And actually, for all of us, I mean, we saw at the conference this last weekend, Lisa, how people's stories were people taking a risk but trusting Jesus.
Yeah, it's lovely. Lovely. Okay, so Thomas, who so
Yeah,
sadly is known as the doubting Thomas, poor guy.
yeah.
Any others?
I mean, I just been reading Jeremiah. I mean, come on, he was not a happy person,
Yeah.
Jeremiah. I mean, you need a strong cup of tea to read Jeremiah, I think. But he is you feel intensely the passion that he has for God and for righteousness. And you can see that he doubts himself. You can see that he doubts whether Israel will ever find a place of recovery. And that sometimes you feel that he can also sort of doubt God a little bit and say, "God, why have you done this to me?" Because they did sort of beat him up pretty badly. I mean, Jeremiah, if you want to be a prophet of God, it's not going to be, everybody's not going to love you, and so I can understand that. So, I mean, I take Job. I mean, if you ever wanted to go through a book of somebody struggling with the reality of doubt, then, Job is there. And to be honest, the list is endless, probably.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that you've got doubt, it's what does it do to you and what do you do with it?
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. And I suppose we should go to Jesus, I think, because he had he had moments, didn't he, where we've really seen his humanity.
Yeah,
I mean, Gethsemane, for example, was there
yeah.
doubt there?
You see, there's great debate, Lisa, about that among theologians. Some of the evangelicals and charismatics, I mean, Jesus never got his clothes dirty. You know, he never dropped, food onto his things. He didn't need to clean his teeth. I mean, it's that sort of. But of course, you've just brought out Jesus was fully human, as well as having the capacity of being fully God at the same time. But he lived out of that humanity, surrendered to God. So Gethsemane, if that's not a genuine moment, then we're all sort of, lost. Because if Jesus was just play acting, just
Yeah,
to make it look good in the Bible, then, but actually the truth is he needs the company of the disciples, particularly Peter, James, and John.
yeah,
So he's feeling something. This is an incredibly emotional time. He knows what's coming. And the doubt is I think that he expresses, Father, it's possible, let this cup pass from me. I
mm,
don't think the doubt is in the Father's love or the Father's goodness. I think he's experiencing what it's like when we get there genuinely
yeah,
and say, God, is there any other way that we could do this?
yeah,
And we've all been there. And my great debate about, my God, why have you forsaken me? As he says on the cross. It's interesting that Jesus, throughout the Gospels, refers to God as Father.
yeah.
So why doesn't he say, my Father, why have
How
you forsaken me?
interesting. Yeah,
Because I don't think the Father did forsake him. I think God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself. And the Father, the Son, the Spirit, this was the thing that they were going to do together.
mm,
I think on the cross, Jesus is experiencing what we experience when we feel alone and vulnerable and desperate and doubting and God forsaken, if you see what I mean.
yeah, yeah,
And, I mean, there are times when I'm not physically with Mary.
mhm,
She's out doing something. Do I sit there and say, because she's not physically here, she doesn't love me anymore? And the answer is no, because I know who she is.
right.
And Jesus knows who the Father is.
Hmm.
But actually, just walking through the valley of the shadow of death, there's a great Greek word. It means it sucks. It's just a horrible experience. And we can feel God forsaken, even though God has not forsaken us. It just feels like that.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I think in those moments, yeah, I think Jesus experienced this, the stuff that we do. And bear in mind, I experience it only for me. Okay.
right.
Jesus experiences it for all of us.
Yeah, gosh.
Okay, so that's pretty big.
Mhm.
So does it make Jesus any less God? No. Does it make him fully human? Yes. Does it change who he is? No. But he does experience, as Hebrews says, everything that we have.
Yeah. Wow, it's huge, isn't it?
Oh,
That's
come on.
big. Yeah. I also quite like, I mean, I may not have heard it completely correctly, but I do like that actually sometimes doubt could be knowing there's another way with
Yeah.
God as well. So yeah, it might feel like, oh, this is awful, but there is another way. I'm going to ponder on that a little bit. Um,
I think that's great. Yeah, good.
yeah. But okay,
And
so sorry, go on.
next podcast, tell us what you think.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and so just thinking about doubts then, it's not about not having them.
No.
It's more about what they do to us and what we can do with them. So
Yeah.
then practically, what can we do, Wes?
Okay. Shall I tell you what I do?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is what I do. The first thing, we're not just, the little niggly thoughts, but the big doubts, the
Yeah.
doubts that, don't fight alone.
Okay.
I got people I can talk to. I got people who can pray with me. I can be honest with and say, I'm really struggling.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't fight alone. The next thing is I don't rely on my own perspective. Yes, I see it this way. And the cloud is very big and it's
Mm,
very black. The juggernaut coming towards me is huge. right? But that's just how I see it.
Yeah.
Somebody else actually might say, actually, Wes, it's not that big and it's not that dark. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that you've got, and because you know what it's like, the longer you go on, the worse you make it.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is, let God's word fuel your imagination. That's what I do. I can sit there and wait for this thing to hit me, or else I can pick up a Bible and say, God, have you got anything to say to me about
Yeah,
this?
very good.
And even if you can't, it amazes me, Lisa, how often just where I'm up to reading in the Bible, just in the thing that I follow, I hit a day and there's a thing. And so let the Bible, let the word of God fuel your imagination. Let it feed how you see this happening.
Yeah.
Worship for me always helps me realign my perspective.
Okay.
It always, if I when I worship God, however I do it, it's like I get closer to him, and the thing, that turn your eyes upon Jesus and the things of this world will go strangely to him. Really, Lauren Daiglin's version of that is brilliant. But the great thing about it is that's absolutely true. The closer I get to Jesus, the less this has impact on me.
Yeah.
And I think also perhaps for me, just developing gratitude, ongoing gratitude, just be grateful for what I have got, seems to help me deal with the stuff that's coming. But they're the 5 things that I do.
That's really helpful stuff. So, and it might be worth, if you're listening, maybe just thinking about any of those things that Wes has mentioned, whether they'll be helpful for you, or thinking for yourself what things you can do practically to help yourself as well. So this has been a good chat, Wes. Really good start to our new series. Overcoming doubts. Can you remember off the top of your head which one we're looking? Is it fears next month?
Yes, we're going to talk about overcoming fear.
Fantastic.
And I just think if your doubts are about living too much in the present, then I think our fears are often about living too much in the future. And so I've got a little one for each of them. So we'll bring them out as we go.
All right. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Wes. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And do check out Acorn Christian Live as well, where we've got some wonderful resources. And we'll catch you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.